Is escalating between Israel and Lebanon as they trade airstrikes across the border. The head of Hezbollah accuses Israel of a declaration of war for the deadly attacks with exploding pagers and walkie-talkies as Israel targets southern Lebanon. Plus,
what are the schools like around your neighborhood in Far Rockaway compared to the schools around Mel's in Elmhurst?
Schools in certain places like Far Rockaway, the resources are minimal. It's just the quality of education, it's different.
It's happening in schools across the country, a divide along racial, ethnic, and economic lines. How did our classrooms resegregate? As studies show our students are getting more diverse. And
estamos a 3. ¿Ustedes han ido a Disneylandia?
No, hemos pasado. ¿Cuánto vamos a subir? Al trabajo que sea.
Spreading joy, one surprise at a time. This Hispanic and Latin American Heritage Month, we're highlighting a creator changing lives by showing gratitude. Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We're following those stories and much more, including bombshell allegations against the Republican candidate for governor of North Carolina. CNN reports that Mark Robinson made disturbing comments more than a decade ago, allegedly referring to himself as a black Nazi, supporting slavery and making disparaging remarks about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., how he's responding tonight. Plus, the governor of Kentucky says a judge was fatally shot in his chambers this afternoon. And we're entering cuffing season, but there are more singles in America today than before the pandemic. What's driving this anti-dating divide? We take a look by the numbers, but we do begin with those damning accusations in the key battleground state of North Carolina made against the Republican candidate for governor. Tonight, Mark Robinson is denying the claims of a new CNN report that alleges he made disturbing comments on a pornography website in a message forum more than a decade ago. Among the comments, he allegedly called himself a black Nazi and is accused of making disparaging comments about Martin Luther King Jr. Tonight, Robinson is vowing to stay in the race. He was endorsed by Donald Trump, who has called the candidate Martin Luther King on steroids. ABC News has not confirmed the CNN report, but tonight that candidate responded even before the report was made public, saying it was not him. It's not just the governor's race being closely watched in that state. The presidential race also being monitored there as well. Rachel Scott leads us off tonight with more on this developing story.
Mark Robinson.
Tonight, the Republican nominee for governor and the crucial presidential battleground of North Carolina is vowing to stay in the race after an explosive CNN report that he made a series of racist and inflammatory online posts, including one where he called himself a, quote, black Nazi. ABC News has not independently confirmed the reporting. CNN says Robinson made the comments between 2008 and 2012 on a pornographic website called Nude Africa. According to CNN, Robinson also posted comments saying slavery is not bad, adding he wished it would come back. Before CNN published its story, Robinson posting this video denying it all.
Let me reassure you, the things that you will see in that story, those are not the words of Mark Robinson.
North Carolina is a key battleground in the presidential election. Polls have shown Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump neck and neck. Robinson even getting a coveted speaking spot at this summer's Republican National Convention.
Hello, Greensboro.
Trump has featured Robinson at his North Carolina rallies.
This is Martin Luther King on steroids, okay? Now, I told that to Mark. I said, I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King ×2.
But CNN alleges that in some of the online posts, Robinson actually attacked the slain civil rights hero Martin Luther King Jr., calling him a communist and using a racial slur. Tonight, his Democratic opponent in the governor's race, State Attorney General Josh Stein, releasing this statement saying North Carolinians already know Mark Robinson is completely unfit to be governor.
Rachel Scott joins us now. And Rachel, what is the Trump campaign saying about these allegations?
Well, they're saying a whole lot about the state of North Carolina, but not a whole lot about these accusations against Mark Robinson. In fact, in a statement that the Trump campaign put out responding to this news, they say that North Carolina is vital to their chances of winning the White House in November, but it notably does not mention Mark Robinson by name. Tonight, there is no word if Robinson plans to appear with Donald Trump at his rally in North Carolina on Saturday, Linsey.
All right, Rachel Scott for us. Thanks so much, Rachel, as always. Now to the escalating tensions in the Middle East tonight after those remote-controlled pager devices were detonated with deadly force over 2 days, killing dozens, injuring thousands. Tonight, Hezbollah's leader is accusing Israel of an act of war. We have Mick Mulroy standing by with more on what this all means for the region and beyond. But first, our chief global affairs anchor Martha Raddatz reports from Tel Aviv.
Tonight, Israeli warplanes pummeling southern Lebanon, striking hundreds of rocket launchers in response to Hezbollah launching its own missiles, killing 2 Israeli soldiers. The Israeli military strikes following 48 hours of unprecedented explosive pager attacks on Hezbollah operatives that left dozens dead and thousands wounded. The leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, today calling it an act of war. But as he spoke, Israeli warplanes roared over Beirut. Our Marcus Moore was there.
There were 2 huge sonic booms that shook the buildings here. People screamed, and clearly the tension is high all over Lebanon.
Those pagers and walkie-talkies detonating wherever the operatives were at the moment. Watch. This mother and child barely avoiding injury. There is growing concern wireless devices could still be activated, the Lebanese military carrying out controlled explosions. Qatar Airways now banning passengers from Beirut from carrying pagers or walkie-talkies on board flights or in checked luggage. And tonight, we're learning Israel began planning for a supply chain attack like this 15 years ago. An intelligence source confirms to ABC News that Israel created shell companies to manufacture and eventually sell the pagers to Hezbollah. The source confirming that 1 to 2 ounces of explosives were planted in the pagers with a remote trigger switch to set off the blasts.
Martha Raddatz joins us now from Tel Aviv once again. And Martha, this has really become a remarkable series of events. I understand the IDF now has a warning for residents tonight. Tell us what that is.
They have, Lindsay. Tonight, the IDF is warning dozens of communities in the north of Israel to be cautious and stay near shelters, and telling residents there will be extensive military exercises throughout the entire weekend. Lindsay?
Martha Raddatz for us from Tel Aviv. Martha, thank you. Now let's bring in ABC News' defense analyst and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, Mick Mulroy. Mick, thanks so much for being here. Now that we're a few days into this new strategy from Israel, many are wondering why now for these attacks?
So, Lindsay, that is a good question. I mean, it looks like this was something that would have been really effective if there was an actual conflict, a ground incursion by Israel into southern Lebanon. At that time, if they would have done this, it would have completely disrupted their communications and set them into chaos. It is possible that this was detected, this compromise in their communication system was detected, and that they elected to go ahead and do it instead of losing all the effort that you described in your report, over 15 years worth of. Now, that's speculation, unknown, because it really just didn't make sense to do it right now, because of course these people were all over the place. They were in the grocery stores, taxi cabs, and places where they could injure civilians. But I'm sure it has shattered the confidence of the rank and file of Hezbollah.
And what long-term impact will this attack have on the terrorist organization Hezbollah?
So of course the long-term impact is going to be their really big concern and their technology, which of course is now a part of modern warfare. You cannot get away from the need for technology in the modern warfare battle space. So this is going to really shatter their ability to trust that, because they can't manufacture most of these types of systems in Lebanon, for example. So they have to get them from outside. And this is going to really challenge their ability to do that. Even these old systems like pagers, and that's 1990s technology, and Israel managed to do something this big and have this big of an effect. Thousands of casualties inside the ranks.
Just from a pure tactical perspective, in your mind, is this an impressive use of the technology?
So from a tactical perspective, this is certainly an impressive covert operation, and it comes on the heels of 2 assassinations. I think strategically it would have been better placed during an actual, if there is, and we should all hope there isn't, a ground war with Israel and Hezbollah, because they would have been away from civilians, of course, likely, as they prepared for this ground attack. And then they would have been completely disrupted, disabled, thousands of casualties, and unable to speak. This was more of a tactical success here. They will recover. There doesn't look to be any chance of a ground war anytime soon. But this is obviously going to have a psychological effect in addition to the physical one that's immediate.
Yeah, major psychological impact, we would imagine. And stepping back for a moment, is there concern about copycats sabotaging technology like this and using it elsewhere around the world?
I think so, yes. I mean, this of course, was a very complicated operation to get this many units into circulation. But I don't think it's that difficult to actually put this type of explosive material inside something that can be triggered remotely. And of course, a pager is perfect to do that. So I'm sure people are looking at how this was done. They're going to try to, work backwards to be able to recreate it themselves. And also, there's going to be some that didn't explode. And so they'll be around for some time until the authorities can collect them all, of course.
Nick Mulroy, we thank you so much for your insight and time, as always.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Next, breaking news. A judge has been shot and killed inside his chambers. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear made the announcement a short time ago. The courthouse has been shut down since. ABC's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas has the latest reporting. Pierre, what can you tell us?
Lindsay, Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, is reporting that a state district judge was shot and killed in his chambers this afternoon at the Letcher County Courthouse in Whitesburg, about 50 miles southeast of Lexington. The district judge has been identified tonight as Kevin Mullins. He was appointed to the bench in 2009 by Stephen Beshear, the father of the current governor. We're getting some video in right now from outside the courthouse. This is a developing story, and we're trying to find out more details on the circumstances. Kentucky's Court of Justice is also confirming the tragedy and that an investigation is underway with the Kentucky State Police taking the lead. They're calling the shooting an isolated incident and that there's no threat to the public. We're hearing local area schools were briefly shut down, and right now we're also told that the courthouse will be closed tomorrow. Governor Beshear saying tonight that there's far too much violence in this country, Lindsay.
All right, we know you'll be staying on top of it for us, Pierre. Our thanks to you. Now to the race for the White House. Election day just 47 days away. And tonight, VP Harris is with Oprah Winfrey in the battleground state of Michigan. Winfrey says she's an independent, making the case that values and character matter most. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump is trying to win support from Jewish voters and claiming Vice President Harris doesn't like Jewish people, though her own husband is Jewish. Here's ABC's Mary Bruce.
Tonight, Vice President Kamala Harris touching down in battleground Michigan, hoping to harness the star power of one of her most influential supporters, Oprah Winfrey.
Together, let's all choose Kamala Harris!
The Queen of Talk hosting a virtual rally with Harris, hoping to reach voters in the critical states that will determine this race. The campaign touting that nearly 200,000 people are registered for the online event. Oprah, a self-proclaimed independent, speaking directly to the sliver of voters who could make the difference.
I'm calling on all you independents and all you undecideds. You know this is true. You know I'm telling you the truth, that values and character matter most of all.
Former President Donald Trump, meanwhile, back in Washington, joining one of his top donors, Miriam Adelson, at an event aimed at fighting anti-Semitism. Trump has said Jews who support Democrats, quote, have to have their head examined, and claimed Harris, quote, doesn't like Jewish people. Today, Harris's husband, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff, himself Jewish, responding in an interview with ABC's Michael Strahan.
He said this, quote, she doesn't like Jewish people. And she likes me. You're Jewish American. So what was your reaction when you heard that in real time?
So it's typical Donald Trump gaslighting. So he is somebody who has had dinner with known anti-Semites after the horrific events of Charlottesville, where people were actually marching with tiki torches saying Jews shall not replace us. And he said there were fine people on both sides of that. This is a guy who has had a record of saying incredibly vile anti-Semitic things. So for him to say that, I just almost laugh at how the chutzpah, as we would say, and it's gaslighting.
Mary Bruce joins us now from Detroit. And Mary, I'm assuming it's no coincidence that this event is taking place in Michigan.
Yeah, Lindsay, no accident here. Look, Walla Harris is doing this event with Oprah here in Detroit, and it's aimed at this broader audience. Her campaign is certainly well aware of just how critical this state is. A new Quinnipiac poll shows Harris leading slightly here in Michigan, 50 to 45%. Lindsay.
Mary Bruce for us in Detroit. Mary, thank you. Now to that urgent warning that Iran stole Trump campaign material and emailed it to members of the Biden campaign. Our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas is back with more.
Tonight, the urgent investigation. Federal officials claiming Iranian hackers sent stolen information from Donald Trump's presidential campaign to political operatives associated with President Biden's campaign. National intelligence and security agencies, including the FBI, saying that in an attempt to influence the election, Iranian hackers sent unsolicited emails to members of Biden's team that included stolen, non-public material from former President Trump's campaign. Those emails, which were sent in late June and early July, right before Biden dropped out of the race, reportedly included vetting documents for potential Republican vice presidential candidates. The agency is saying there's no information suggesting that those recipients replied, but it's unclear tonight if any of them opened or forwarded the emails.
Iran hacked into my campaign. I don't know what the hell they found. I'd like to find out. Couldn't have been too exciting. But they gave it to the Biden campaign.
Tonight, the Harris-Walz campaign is condemning any foreign election interference. The Harris campaign says it's cooperating with authorities and acknowledges that a few individuals were targeted on their personal emails with what looked like a spam or phishing attempt.
Pierre Thomas, thank you. In Nebraska, a proposed change to the state's electoral system could be pivotal to the presidential election. The change would amend Nebraska's current system that splits its 5 electoral votes among candidates to the more common winner-takes-all system, in which the candidate with the most votes wins all the state's electoral votes. The change would give former President Trump an easier path to the White House, and he has endorsed it. Nebraska's Republican governor said he intends to call a special session of the state Senate to debate on the proposed change. Police are launching a criminal investigation into the massive pipeline fire outside Houston. Human remains were found inside the vehicle that crashed through a fence, hit an above-ground valve, and caused the explosion on Monday. The local police department said medical examiners removed the body from the vehicle and are now working on identifying it. After the natural gas pipeline exploded, thousands of surrounding homes were ordered to evacuate, and it is still burning. It was another dramatic day of testimony before a Coast Guard panel investigating how the Titan submersible imploded last year near the wreck of the Titanic. Here's Whit Johnson.
Heartbreaking testimony today before a Coast Guard panel investigating the Titan disaster. A crew member describing how excited those 5 passengers were as they boarded the submersible before heading toward the Titanic.
I saw 5 people smiling, looking forward to their journey. I was the one holding that bag for them as they got in the sub.
Renata Rojas breaking down as she recalled their final moments.
They were just very happy to go. And that's the memory I have. Nobody was really nervous. They were excited about what they're going to see. Make sure you have your camera.
Hours later, the Titan imploded, killing all 5 on board, including OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush. The company's scientific director today testifying that just days before the doomed voyage in June 2023, the Titan malfunctioned during a dive.
One passenger was hanging upside down, and the other 2 managed to wedge themselves into the bow end cap.
Rush had insisted on using carbon fiber for the experimental vessel, despite warnings from employees.
You know, I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium, there's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did.
Our thanks to Whit Johnson. A new FTC report accuses the 9 leading social media companies, including Meta, YouTube, and TikTok, of vast surveillance and failure to protect children on the platforms. The 129-page report found companies like X and Snap surveil their users and make billions of dollars a year doing so. According to the report, these companies endanger user privacy and children in particular because social media companies are, quote, willfully blind, end quote, to protecting users younger than 13. In response, a Google spokesperson told ABC News that Google has the strictest privacy policies in the industry, and Instagram announced new protective settings on teen accounts this Tuesday. There are lingering effects from a dangerous storm and several tropical systems brewing off the East Coast. Our meteorologist Lee Goldberg from our partner station, New York WABC, is tracking it all for us. Hey, Lee.
Hey, Lindsay. Yeah, summer is still on the weather map for sure. We hit the mid-80s in New York City today, but we're also dealing with summer storms where we've had unseasonable warmth over the middle of the country. There's a tornado warning south of Duluth right now. Tornado watch in the Arrowhead of Minnesota into northern Wisconsin until 11 o'clock. Severe thunderstorm watch to the south. We've already seen quarter-size hail. On the East Coast, it's a low off the northeast coast that continues to do laps, and right now it's heavy rain and gusty winds on the Cape and Islands. Some lighter rains trying to back in toward Boston. Now, that rain's not going to reach New York City. But after the harvest moon and the onshore flow, we have coastal flood issues, even minor to moderate coastal flooding as we go into the weekend. Those alerts extend all the way down to Virginia Beach. And then there's the tropics. There are several systems way out in the Atlantic, yes, but the one we're more concerned about, northern Caribbean into the southwestern Gulf of Mexico, certainly could be development into early next week. We have to watch that along the coast. That storm would be named Helene. Lindsay?
All right, Lee Goldberg for us. Thanks so much, Lee. After the Federal Reserve's half-point rate cut 24 hours ago, the U.S. stock market closed tonight with record highs. The Dow soaring and closing above 42,000 for the first time. Plus, the S&P also hit a new record. All this after the Fed delivered its first cut to interest rates in more than 4 years. And mortgage rates are falling yet again. The 30-year fixed rate is now 6.09%. Still much more to get to here on Prime tonight. Tense moments caught on camera as a deputy puts her life at risk on a busy road. Why a driver couldn't keep control of his car. But next, the landmark Brown versus the Board of Education decision was supposed to usher in a future full of racially diverse schools. But 70 years later, classrooms are becoming more segregated. In our Prime Focus tonight, how students and educators are going to great lengths to create a more equitable future.
Unfortunately, we have come away from our commitment to the spirit of Brown. Schools have been resegregating rapidly since the 1980s.
School segregation is persistent, and it plagues us across the country and across the years, unfortunately. I wish I could say there was a place that had solved it.
Did you kill Mary Yoder?
Sorry. No, I did not kill Mary Yoder. So it was a normal day until Mary started getting sick. No one really knew what was happening.
Her eyes just looked terrified. In less than 48 hours, my mom went from her healthy self to having died.
This is a mystery. How did she die? They begin to do this autopsy.
It's just screaming, toxin, toxin, toxin.
Did somebody intentionally do this to her?
When the tests came back, I thought, yo, holy, are you kidding me?
I had dated Adam. I was scared of him. It changed the way I see the world.
She was really afraid for her life.
I do think Bill could have killed Mary. His wife died in July, and in November, he was dating his sister-in-law.
There was nothing in the world that was making sense at that point.
Caitlin Conley was guilty as sin. Are you okay?
I'm sorry, I'm scared.
This girl thought she was smarter than everybody else. But there's another side to Caitlin Conley.
Well, I'm not buying this little Miss Innocent game.
Sequoia's a very small town. Everybody knows everybody.
My garden club is very divided. People think she's innocent. I think she's guilty.
Never heard of a case like this. Maybe a thriller.
It was pure evil.
We weren't quite sure what was coming next.
I know it wasn't me. Sorry. So, if it wasn't me, who was it?
Little Miss Innocent. Passion, poison, prison. Only on Hulu.
ABC News, America's #1 news source. Friday, the 2020 season premiere.
Dr. Garcia, police department.
Oh my God, Dr. Garcia was deceased on the couch.
Secrets will be revealed. The 2020 season premiere, Friday night on ABC.
Every Friday.
The hottest trends, styles, and must-have. It's time to buy the right stuff.
And save big time, too. The right stuff. Fridays on GMA.
You're gonna love it.
ABC News Live, honored with 8 Emmy nominations, more than any other streaming news network. And ABC News Live Prime with Linsey Davis, the first and only streaming show nominated for Best Outstanding Live News Program. This is ABC News Live.
Welcome back, everyone. Many have seen images from the 1950s of the chaos created when Brown versus the Board of Education ushered in the racial integration of America's schools. Those students on the front lines of the progress felt their fight would lead to more diverse classrooms and better opportunities for students of color. 70 years after that landmark court ruling, our country has a more racially diverse group of students, but many of America's schools have now resegregated. ABC's Ika Jachi explores what that means not only for current, but future students.
Just like millions of other high school students, Ava Pittman starts her journey to class taking the bus. But that's where the similarities end. You see, this daily trip starts long before first period, just after dawn breaks.
I used to live in Forest Hill, so it was like a 15-minute walk, but now it is probably an hour and 30 minutes on the bus.
Every morning, Ava makes the 14-mile, hour-and-a-half journey through Queens from Far Rockaway to Elmhurst, just to get to her school, MELS, the Metropolitan Expeditionary Learning School.
I have English first period, I have music after, and then I have pre-calc, which is going to be strenuous. And then after my last class, we have speech and debate practice. So I'll be at practice till around 5:15, and I probably won't be home until around like 6:30, 7, depending on how long I have to wait for the bus, the delays. Hopefully anytime before 7 I'll be happy with. And then I have to do homework, shower, eat, go to bed.
What are the schools like around your neighborhood in Far Rockaway compared to the schools around MELS in Elmhurst?
Schools in certain places like Far Rockaway, the resources are minimal. It's just the quality of education, it's different. I do a lot of things that are like inside the school that I couldn't take with me to another place, if that makes sense. I co-founded an affinity group called BAM, which is Black at MELS. I'm also part of Education Student Advisory Council. My speech and debate team is the most diverse in our league. There's a lot of Latino people in my school, and then Black, and then white, and then Asian.
The opportunities available to Ava are geographically unique, but just to receive it, most of her day is taken up by her commute. Schools in the U.S. remain deeply divided along racial, ethnic, and economic lines, even as studies show that the K-12 public school population is becoming more diverse.
My elementary school, when I moved to Forest Hills, was very white, and it was like me and I think 3 or 4 other Black kids, and like I struggled with finding people that looked like me and like resonating with what was being taught to me, especially because there were no Black teachers.
Take me to a world where Ava never left and always went to school around home. What do you think her school experience would have been like in that world?
Honestly, I think she's become a stronger advocate because she got to see the other side from a very young age. You know, we talked about Black history. We talked about the importance of her identity and how she operates in spaces, but she got to see that everyone doesn't have that.
70 years ago, the landmark Brown versus the Board of Education ruling was supposed to make schools more diverse, declaring separating children in schools on the basis of race unconstitutional and ushering in integration efforts. But according to the latest U.S. Government Accountability Office investigation of K-12 education, schools are becoming highly segregated again. More than a third of students attend schools where 75% or more students are of a single race or ethnicity. In 1957, 3 years after the Brown versus the Board of Education ruling, the NAACP attempted to enroll 9 black students at Little Rock Central High School. The ensuing chaos gripped the nation, and it became known to the media as the Little Rock Nine.
The first day is actually significant because it is a mirror image of all the other days. We were beaten and pushed and shoved, and stuff was thrown on us, we were kicked around. But as I said before, we had taken a vow of nonviolence. We chose not to fight.
The governor of Arkansas at the time prevented the students from entering the racially segregated school, using his state's National Guard for help. After weeks of failed attempts to safely get the students through a full day of classes, President Eisenhower intervened.
Our enemies are gloating over this incident and using it everywhere to misrepresent our whole nation.
Those students today disappointed at how much work still needs to be done.
Over these 60-plus years, all the achievements that we have made here in this country is now being taken away from us. And if young people don't stand up and stop some of this process and strategize as to how they're going to go about changing these things, or at least put some rudders to what is being changed by others, we're in a mess here.
When you look at American history, what you will find is a consistent willingness to support segregated society. That is the main focus, but you can't stop working for it in any case. Right. You have to be fully aware that unless you have superhuman powers, how are you going to change it?
Unfortunately, we have come away from our commitment to the spirit of Brown. Schools have been resegregating rapidly since the 1980s. So let's think about designing for diversity.
Saba Burita co-founded Brown's Promise alongside Ari Amerikaner. It's an initiative working to combat racial segregation and honor the legacy of the Little Rock Nine students.
Why are our schools still segregated today? It's multi-faceted, big question. I think it is largely because we don't talk about it. We can't and we won't fix what we don't talk about and recognize.
Following the landmark Brown versus the Board decision, students started getting bused into schools from different neighborhoods to promote integration. But much of that stopped. Starting in 1980, costly busing orders began to expire. And with a history of housing discrimination leading many neighborhoods to be segregated by race, for millions of students, going to the public school closest to your home means it won't be racially diverse. Despite the billions of dollars invested to desegregate public schools over the last few decades, today, school segregation is back at the same level it was in the 1960s.
School segregation is persistent, and it plagues us across the country and across the years, unfortunately. I wish I could say there was a place that had solved it.
According to data collected by the Department of Education, between 2022 and 2023, amongst 100,000 public schools across the country, about 83% of black public school students and 82% of Latino students attended a majority non-white school. At the same time, 75% of white public school students were enrolled in a majority white school.
We talk a lot about the importance of school integration to the health of our democracy. Students who continually are growing up in segregated environments are not interacting with people from different backgrounds. So when they get into higher ed or they get into their careers, and they've never worked with someone who is from a different race or a different socioeconomic background, that causes friction.
That's such a great point.
At a recent conference in Baltimore, Saba and Ari met with education leaders to discuss solutions. Educators are making a major push toward public magnet schools, in particular, which offer specialized courses and programs designed to attract a more diverse student body.
They offer theme programming that you can't get in other schools, and students and families find that valuable. And what they, in particular, find important is the opportunity to go to a school that's integrated, where students can learn alongside students from different racial, ethnic, socioeconomic backgrounds, and they engage in a pluralistic society in a way that they wouldn't otherwise be prepared to do if they were in a traditional public school.
Ava, even at a young age, is also fighting for diversity and, most importantly, integration in public schools. She's a youth advocacy director at Integrate NYC, a youth-led organization aimed at creating equity in New York City schools.
Power to the youth, yeah.
Integrate NYC is currently in a legal battle with New York State. According to the Civil Rights Project, New York is one of the most diverse states in the nation, yet at the same time, one of the most segregated. In the lawsuit against the state, Integrate NYC claims the sorting and admission process in New York City schools forces students of color to be channeled into the most overcrowded and under-resourced schools across the city. The New York City Department of Education sent us a statement saying, in part, we agree with the plaintiffs that achieving those educational goals is made harder by the complex system of biases, inequities deeply rooted in this country's history, culture, and institutions, a system that we also want to change. But this lawsuit is not the answer. We are prepared to defend against these claims in court. Ava is even taking her fight from the streets of New York City to the halls of Washington, D.C., speaking on a student-led panel during Attorney General Merrick Garland's remarks on the 70th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Ed.
The doctrine of separate but equal has no place.
Moderated by Brown's promise.
Majority black and brown schools will lack resources. They won't have AP classes. They won't have sports teams.
Educators and integration advocates have tried for years to get the federal government to have a bigger role in supporting school desegregation. A spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Education sent us a statement saying, in part, the department has supported voluntary school integration through local partnerships with parents, educators, and communities, addressed disparities in funding and resources for schools, and issued guidance and funding to support a more diverse educator workforce.
So many people here today. You changed the world.
The Biden administration announced last year they'd created a new $10 million grant to fund school integration efforts, just a small portion of the $100 million the administration has tried to get Congress to put towards this effort. Unless something is done to improve school integration, Ava, like thousands of other students across the country, will have to keep fighting for their education and the opportunities that come with it. How do you fix this here in New York City? Can you, and what does that actually look like?
Young people are the only people in New York City, like high schools, public schools. So we need to listen to our demands because they're very important. And we shape the future.
Examining another aspect of education. Our thanks to Ika Jachi for that. Still much more to get to. Coming up, new details from the trial of the 3 officers charged in connection of the killing of Tyree Nichols. The officer accused of texting a bloody picture of Nichols after the assault. But next, the pandemic can be blamed for a lot of things, possibly even your relationship status. We take a closer look at the so-called dating recession by the numbers.
There was a specific moment during our wedding. I looked at Jason, I looked at my children, and I realized this was real. That was my husband, and this was our family. We live in a very beautiful place, and sometimes the beauty masks what really is going on. Jason seemed happy. We all just thought the world of him.
This is her knight in shining armor.
Everything felt right. All of a sudden, I found this hidden folder. I opened it, and I don't think I can say it. I'm sorry. I just need a break.
She put her hand to her mouth and gasped. It's shocking, gut-wrenching.
I realized that my life will never be the same. Jason would kill me before he would let me tell anyone this part of him. He is in so much freaking trouble.
My stomach just dropped. I remember just feeling like, what the hell? That was my dad. It did not feel real. It felt so shocking. Like, what is going on?
Never in a million years did I ever think
think Jason capable of something so horrific? What did I miss?
That's when that fire inside of me shifted to like a flame. I was like, it's on. I lured Jason to a public place. The whole police squad pulls up. I hear the most awful sound, like blood curdling, out of this world scream. And I realized it was coming out of me.
Betrayal is one of the hardest types of trauma to overcome.
Those letters and those apologies were to make him feel better.
Everything that he said was a lie. How could he do this? He just really didn't think I had it in me to do something. So I did.
Betrayal, A Father's Secret, the all-new season, only on Hulu.
You're watching America's #1 streaming news. Keep streaming with ABC News Live. Why do so many people start their day here?
From ABC News, this is Start Here.
To be in the know and get a different take on the day's top stories.
A lot of news today, so let's get into it.
Listen now to the Daily News Podcast honored with 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards and see why the New York Times calls it a news podcast worth listening to. Start Here, ABC News. Make it your daily first listen.
Now, that's a part of the story I bet you didn't see coming.
Wherever you get your podcasts, Start Here. ABC's David Muir, the most watched newscast in America. More Americans watch World News Tonight with David Muir than any other newscast.
It's lunchtime in America, so what are we serving up?
Well, how about everything you need to know?
Give it to me. Your health, your money, breaking news, pop culture, with the biggest stars, music, trends, and of course, good food.
It's all coming up on GMA3.
You're going to love it. We'll see you then.
GMA3, what you need to know. A third hour of GMA in the afternoon.
So join us, afternoons.
For everything you need to know.
I love that.
Me too.
Reporting from the Normandy coast for the 80th anniversary of D-Day, I'm David Muir. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Welcome back, everyone. For the first time since the beginning of the pandemic, the Federal Reserve decided Wednesday to slash interest rates, which should spur borrowing and investments. But one thing that hasn't changed since the pandemic is the shyness of America's singles to date again, let alone get married. What's going on? We'll take a look and break it down by the numbers. There's an estimated 13.3 million more single Americans today than in 2017, according to research from Stanford social demographer Michael Rosenfeld. And if single people get married at all, they're doing so later and later, whereas 60% of 30-year-olds in 2003 had been married at least once. That number tumbled to just 47% as of last year, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. And it doesn't help that we seem to be treasuring our alone time a bit more, whereas adults 20 years ago spent an average of 5.5 hours per week socializing face-to-face. That number dropped to just 4 hours last year, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics Time Use Survey. Staying single naturally impacts the economy and home ownership. Only 33% of 30-year-olds own a home today, compared to 44% in 2003. Less of a need to purchase and furnish a large home when it's just you. And we still have much more ahead here on Prime tonight. Earth is getting another moon. How this mini moon will join our orbit and how long it's sticking around. And as we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, TikToker Jesus Morales tells us how he's using his platform to give back to his community and also how it's changed his own life.
More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source.
Hi, my name is Patrice. I am a totally cool person with a disability who could do most anything.
Patrice always sees the best side of life.
Patrice is a big magnet for people.
If it can be done, she will do it.
I really love Gary. He's everything.
I just looked at her and I said, would you like to be my wife?
If you get married and you're collecting a Social Security benefit, your benefit will be cut.
We have to have it. We'd never be able to pay for the bills.
I don't take anything for granted. To us.
To us.
You're a part-time lover and a full-time friend. The monkey on your back is the latest
just a trend. I don't see what anyone can see in anyone else.
People think people with disabilities have no value.
You
need to tell your story, and people can listen and say, this is why benefits are extremely important.
I don't see what anyone can see.
I want to get married. I want to be able to live in the same house as my spouse.
Here is the church and
They can stop us from getting married. They can stop us from living together, but they're never going to stop us from loving each other.
This law needs to change, and we're going to do what we have to do to make this happen.
Patrice is good at making dreams come true.
Who wants to get married?
There's something else, you know that?
Yeah.
Sex, lies, and a double murder.
2 small children were kidnapped.
your mom and dad are gonna be right here waiting on you when you get home.
The pleas of Susan Smith captivated the country.
When the twist came, then it completely exploded.
It's one of the craziest stories I've ever heard, and people don't know about it. How on earth could a mother do this?
What kind of mother would kill her own children?
After nearly 30 years in prison, Smith now has a chance at parole.
It's crazy.
Could the woman once dubbed the most hated mom in America go free?
Killer Mom, the case of Susan Smith, now streaming on Hulu. When it matters most, America turns to David Muir and ABC's World News Tonight. Nightline, the stories that shape your world, that shape your life. Dramatic, stunning, empowering, jaw-dropping. The most powerful stories of our time. Nightline, on right after Kimmel and streaming on Hulu.
New details from the trial regarding the killing of Tyre Nichols. Video shows the moment a deputy puts her life at risk to save a driver and the mini moon that's joining Earth's orbit. These stories and much more in tonight's rundown.
3 former Memphis police officers charged in the fatal beating of Tyre Nichols. Testimony alleged former officer Demetrius Haley texted another officer he was then dating and her family pictures of a bloodied Nichols. Haley is on trial along with Justin Smith and Tadarius Bean, accused in part of violating Nichols' civil rights through use of excessive force from the traffic stop last January. Nichols died from his injuries. All 3 have pleaded not guilty. A former CIA officer received a 30-year prison sentence for drugging, sexually assaulting, and filming 28 women in multiple countries without their consent. 48-year-old Brian Jeffrey Raymond pleaded guilty last November. His crimes spanned from 2006 to 2020. Many of the victims he met through dating apps. Court documents show several of the crimes occurred in government-leased housing in Mexico City. A sheriff's deputy in Michigan was caught on camera pulling off a stunt that could have been in a Hollywood action movie. All of this to help a driver. Deputy Nicole Murin saw a man driving erratically last Thursday. Her partner pulled their SUV up to his pickup truck. Murin soon realized that the 63-year-old driver was suffering a medical emergency, so she hung her body out of the moving SUV, telling the driver to lower his window, and then Murin climbed into the moving pickup and put it in park. That driver was taken to the hospital for treatment. CDC data shows overdose deaths across the U.S. continue to fall. As of April 2024, the data shows the estimated number of deaths in the past 12 months fell to just over 101,000, down from all of 2023 when overdose deaths topped 107,000. Fewer Americans are dying from drug overdoses due to opioids and fentanyl that account for the majority of overdose deaths nationwide. Health officials say they have dropped to the lowest level in 3 years. But federal health officials say even with the decline, the number of drug overdose deaths is still higher than it was pre-pandemic. As the San Francisco 49ers fly off to LA to play the Rams this weekend, they're making history as the first NFL team to fly on a plane powered by sustainable aviation fuel made out of renewable materials. The United Airlines plane will be flying on what's known as SAF. Experts say this is a step forward because SAF can reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 85% from the time it's produced to when it's used. Earth is getting a second moon for a limited time. Astronomers say an asteroid will come close enough to Earth to temporarily enter its orbit at the end of the month.
An asteroid is getting captured by the Earth's gravity, and it'll be part of the Earth-Moon system. It'll orbit the Earth for maybe about 2 months, and then it'll get flung back out.
Luckily, our second moon won't get close enough to threaten our existence. If you want to catch a peek at it, you'll need a telescope.
The WNBA has announced plans to expand to 15 teams as it brings a franchise back to Portland, Oregon. It's just the latest in a series of milestones for the league. ABC's Eva Pilgrim has that story.
I am honored to officially announce that we have awarded Portland the 15th WNBA franchise.
Portland, Oregon joining the WNBA. It's the first time a WNBA team will return to a city it left. The Fire played in Portland for 3 years before being dissolved in 2002.
Seconds tick off, and the Fever have their win against the Liberty.
The league is coming off its highest viewed and attended season ever. Driving interest, a breakout rookie class.
6 threes on the night.
Stars like Caitlin Clark, who set a record for assists in a single game and became the first rookie to have a triple-double in a game. And Angel Reese, who set a WNBA record for consecutive double-doubles before suffering a season-ending injury. Established vets like Asia Wilson also rewriting the record books. The Aces star breaking the single-season scoring record, becoming the first player in league history to score over 1,000 points.
These women, whether they are veterans or rookies, are ushering in new fans in a very similar way that maybe Larry Bird and Magic Johnson did, that really helped transition the NBA into the mainstream. Now the women are having a moment.
Portland is the third expansion team entering the league over the next 2 years, with San Francisco and Toronto getting the other 2 spots.
The best is yet to come. These 3 teams joining the WNBA is the blueprint for the future.
Our thanks to Eva Pilgrim. We turn now to a special Hispanic and Latin American Heritage Month edition of TikTok, where we take a closer look at the story behind the sensation. He's given hundreds of thousands of dollars to street vendors across California, but for Latino content creator Jesus Morales, nothing amounts to the hope he spreads with every surprise. Using donations from his 5.4 million followers on TikTok, Jesus surprises workers, many of them immigrants, with grand gestures like trips to Disneyland, which is also owned by our parent company, Disney. Let's take a look.
Necesitamos a 3. ¿Ustedes han ido a Disneylandia? No, no. Hemos pasado. Vamos a subir al trabajo que sea.
Love to see that. Jesus, kind enough to join us now. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you're dubbed the TikTok angel of street vendors. What inspired you to offer such generous tips and even trips to Disneyland to workers from your community?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think just my upbringing in general, my parents always taught me the importance of giving back. And not only that, but, you know, growing up, I used to watch a lot of videos on like YouTube and social media in general. And, you know, I always wanted to do something along those lines. And it was just one day in 2020 where I decided that I kind of wanted to shoot for it. And I went up to a local street vendor with $100 and gave him a tip. And ever since that video, the rest, you know, is history.
And what are some of the standout reactions that you've gotten from surprising some of these workers?
I mean, I've seen a lot of different things, but I think the most impactful one that I always like remember, there was this lady in Los Angeles who was selling flowers, and we surprised her by buying out all her flowers. And it was around the Christmas time, and we also offered to take her on a shopping spree. And we also gave her a $500 tip afterwards, and her reaction was just, she got down on her knees and she started to cry and started praying, you know, for the blessing and also for us. And it was such a moving moment that, like, it's always going to be engraved in my heart. And so that's one of my favorite reactions. But in general, like, it's just amazing seeing how people react to these surprises.
So meaningful, and we can see from your post just how emotional some of the people that you help become. What's been the most gratifying part for you of being able to give back in such a big way?
I mean, just the fact that I'm even able to do it, is a blessing in itself. I never imagined myself to be in this position, and I don't take it for granted at all. And yeah, it's just the most beautiful and rewarding feeling to be able to have these opportunities and to be able to, work with different sorts of brands to give me opportunities to do even bigger things and take more people to places and give them even bigger rewards, like bigger tips and things like that.
What's the message that you hope people will take with them after watching your content?
I think I would want people to see a different side of the individuals, that we see, like within our videos. I think the Latino people in general understand and really know the message of like echándole ganas. The people that we help out, which is what I'm wearing right now. It's a common phrase in the Latino community saying echándole ganas, which can kind of translate into like trying my best, working hard, just doing whatever I can in a sense. But I think, my videos have really expanded far past the Latino community, and I see people of all sorts of different kinds of backgrounds seeing the videos and commenting and saying, wow, like, I never knew things were this way, and like, it's so cool to see how hardworking the Latino people are. And so these individuals that we look for and that we strive to help out are the ones who are just here doing their best and trying to make it out here in the United States.
Jesus, we thank you so much for joining us and for what you're doing to brighten people's day and lives. And you can check out Jesus on TikTok at Juice for heartwarming and life-changing surprises. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Coming up in the next hour, the latest on escalating violence between Israel and Lebanon in the wake of deadly attacks triggered by exploding devices. And body camera video captures a terrifying scene. A woman found with a python wrapped around her. See what happened next.
It was a regular day for 19-year-old Melissa Witt.
She went to meet her mom at a bowling church league, but she never makes it into the bowling alley. Something terrible had happened to her. Melissa was a good kid. She had big dreams for her life.
And then she disappears.
My gut knew this was not a young girl who just took off and ran away.
New information into the disappearance of Melissa Witt. Pools of blood were found by detectives.
We were sick to our stomachs.
I just love to have her back more than anything in the world.
It is a heart-wrenching day for the family of 19-year-old Melissa Witt.
Police found the body in the Ozark National Forest.
You had several suspects.
All these kinds of leads. Who could have done this?
You have a known serial killer in your area.
Could he be involved?
Find the evidence, find the DNA profile.
We had to find that person. Time was of the essence.
Every blood spot matters. Every piece of DNA matters. You're looking for that game-changing piece.
We're actually finding key evidence that could have slipped through the cracks.
One of our guys says, you're going to see this.
And there's another one.
What could be underneath these headstones? Her last hours on this earth were probably the most horrific a person can experience.
This beautiful young girl. Police will find out what happened.
At wit's end, the hunt for a killer. Now streaming only on Hulu.
What Happened to Matthew Perry, now streaming on Hulu.
How many elephants have you killed?
True natural beauty, one of the last of its kind. But this comes at a cost. 5 countries, 5 incredible real stories of adventure, danger,
We have to go.
and deceit.
Where are we going next? We got this ongoing search for the animal we've been trying to find.
These are the last lands. The national parks around the world that have to be saved.
Reporting from Monterey Park, California, I'm Robin Roberts. Wherever the story is, we're going to take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Good evening, everyone. This is ABC News Live Prime. I'm Linsey Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We have a lot of news to get to this evening, including an update on the death of a Kentucky judge shot inside his chamber, a sheriff now charged in connection with the shooting. Plus, violence escalates between Israel and Lebanon as they trade airstrikes across the border. The head of Hezbollah accuses Israel of a declaration of war for the deadly attacks with exploding pagers and walkie-talkies as Israel targets southern Lebanon. And she's the first female artist to secure a collaboration with Fender and is one of the most sought-after bassists on the planet. Our conversation with Blue to Tiger on her new album. But we do begin with those damning accusations in the key battleground state of North Carolina made against the Republican candidate for governor. Tonight, Mark Robinson is denying the claims of a new CNN report that alleges he made disturbing comments on a pornography website in a message forum more than a decade ago. Among the comments, he allegedly called himself a black Nazi and is accused of making disparaging comments about Martin Luther King Jr. Tonight, Robinson is vowing to stay in the race. He was endorsed by Donald Trump, who has called the candidate Martin Luther King on steroids. ABC News has not confirmed the CNN report, but tonight that candidate responded even before the report was made public, saying it was not him. It's not just the governor's race that's being watched closely in that state. The presidential race also being closely monitored. Rachel Scott leads us off with more on this developing story.
Mark Robinson.
Tonight, the Republican nominee for governor and the crucial presidential battleground of North Carolina is vowing to stay in the race after an explosive CNN report that he made a series of racist and inflammatory online posts, including one where he called himself a, quote, black Nazi. ABC News has not independently confirmed the reporting. CNN says Robinson made the comments between 2008 and 2012 on a pornographic website called Nude Africa. According to CNN, Robinson also posted comments saying slavery is not bad, adding he wished it would come back. Before CNN published its story, Robinson posting this video denying it all.
Let me reassure you, the things that you will see in that story, those are not the words of Mark Robinson.
North Carolina is a key battleground in the presidential election. Polls have shown Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump neck and neck. Robinson even getting a coveted speaking spot at this summer's Republican National Convention.
Hello, Greensboro.
Trump has featured Robinson at his North Carolina rallies.
This is Martin Luther King on steroids, okay? Now, I told that to Mark. I said, I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King ×2.
But CNN alleges that in some of the online posts, Robinson actually attacked the slain civil rights hero Martin Luther King Jr., calling him a communist and using a racial slur. Tonight, his Democratic opponent in the governor's race, State Attorney General Josh Stein, releasing this statement saying North Carolinians already know Mark Robinson is completely unfit to be governor.
Rachel Scott reporting. Now to the escalating tensions in the Middle East tonight after those remote-controlled pager devices were detonated with deadly force over the course of 2 days, killing dozens, injuring thousands. Tonight, Hezbollah's leader is accusing Israel of an act of war. Our chief global affairs anchor Martha Raddatz reports from Tel Aviv tonight.
Tonight, Israeli warplanes pummeling southern Lebanon, striking hundreds of rocket launchers in response to Hezbollah launching its own missiles, killing 2 Israeli soldiers. The Israeli military strikes following 48 hours of unprecedented explosive pager attacks on Hezbollah operatives that left dozens dead and thousands wounded. The leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, today calling it an act of war. But as he spoke, Israeli warplanes roared over Beirut. Our Marcus Moore was there.
There were 2 huge sonic booms that shook the buildings here. People screamed, and clearly the tension is high all over Lebanon.
Those pagers and walkie-talkies detonating wherever the operatives were at the moment. Watch. This mother and child barely avoiding injury. There is growing concern wireless devices could still be activated, the Lebanese military carrying out controlled explosions. Qatar Airways now banning passengers from Beirut from carrying pagers or walkie-talkies on board flights or in checked luggage. And tonight, we're learning Israel began planning for a supply chain attack like this 15 years ago. An intelligence source confirms to ABC News that Israel created shell companies to manufacture and eventually sell the pagers to Hezbollah. The source confirming that 1 to 2 ounces of explosives were planted in the pagers with a remote trigger switch to set off the blasts.
Martha Raddatz reporting from Tel Aviv. And breaking news out of Kentucky at this hour. Kentucky State Police say they have charged a local sheriff in connection with the shooting death of a district judge. The governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, announced that Judge Kevin Mullins was killed inside his chamber. The Kentucky police confirmed that they have charged Letcher County Sheriff Sean Steins with murder in the judge's death. They say Steins shot Judge Mullins following an argument inside the courthouse. There are no reports of any other victims. Now to the race for the White House. Election day just 47 days away, and tonight VP Harris is with Oprah Winfrey in the battleground state of Michigan. Winfrey says she's an independent, making the case that values and character matter most. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump is trying to win support from Jewish voters and claiming Vice President Harris doesn't like Jewish people, though her own husband is Jewish. Here's ABC's Mary Bruce.
Tonight, Vice President Kamala Harris touching down in battleground Michigan, hoping to harness the star power of one of her most influential supporters, Oprah Winfrey.
Together, let's all choose Kamala Harris!
The Queen of Talk hosting a virtual rally with Harris, hoping to reach voters in the critical states that will determine this race. The campaign touting that nearly 200,000 people are registered for the online event. Oprah, a self-proclaimed independent, speaking directly to the sliver of voters who could make the difference.
I'm calling on all you independents and all you undecideds. You know this is true. You know I'm telling you the truth, that values and character matter most of all.
Former President Donald Trump, meanwhile, back in Washington, joining one of his top donors, Miriam Adelson, at an event aimed at fighting anti-Semitism. Trump has said Jews who support Democrats, quote, have to have their head examined, and claimed Harris, quote, doesn't like Jewish people. Today, Harris's husband, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff, himself Jewish, responding in an interview with ABC's Michael Strahan.
He said this, quote, she doesn't like Jewish people. And
she likes me.
You're Jewish American. So what was your reaction when you heard that in real time?
So it's typical Donald Trump gaslighting. So he is somebody who has had dinner with known anti-Semites after the horrific events of Charlottesville, where people were actually marching with tiki torches saying Jews shall not replace us. And he said there were fine people on both sides of that. This is a guy who has had a record of saying incredibly vile anti-Semitic things. So for him to say that, I just almost laugh at how the chutzpah, as we would say, and it's gaslighting.
Mary Bruce reporting. Now to that urgent warning that Iran stole Trump campaign material and emailed it to members of the Biden campaign. Our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas reports.
Tonight, the urgent investigation. Federal officials claiming Iranian hackers sent stolen information from Donald Trump's presidential campaign to political operatives associated with President Biden's campaign. National intelligence and security agencies, including the FBI, saying that in an attempt to influence the election, Iranian hackers sent unsolicited emails to members of Biden's team that included stolen, non-public material from former President Trump's campaign. Those emails, which were sent in late June and early July, right before Biden dropped out of the race, reportedly included vetting documents for potential Republican vice presidential candidates. The agency is saying there's no information suggesting that those recipients replied, but it's unclear tonight if any of them opened or forwarded the emails.
Iran hacked into my campaign. I don't know what the hell they found. I'd like to find out. Couldn't have been too exciting. But they gave it to the Biden campaign.
Tonight, the Harris-Walz campaign is condemning any foreign election interference. The Harris campaign says it's cooperating with authorities and acknowledges that a few individuals were targeted on their personal emails with what looked like a spam or phishing attempt.
Our thanks to Pierre Thomas. There are lingering effects from a dangerous storm and several tropical systems brewing off the East Coast. Our meteorologist Lee Goldberg from our partner station, New York WABC, is tracking it all for us. Hey, Lee.
Hey, Lindsay. Yeah, summer is still on the weather map for sure. We hit the mid-80s in New York City today, but we're also dealing with summer storms where we've had unseasonable warmth over the middle of the country. There's a tornado warning south of Duluth right now. Tornado watch in the Arrowhead of Minnesota into northern Wisconsin until 11 o'clock. Severe thunderstorm watch to the south. We've already seen quarter-size hail. On the East Coast, it's a low off the northeast coast that continues to do laps, and right now it's heavy rain and gusty winds on the Cape and Islands. Some lighter rains trying to back in toward Boston. Now, that rain's not going to reach New York City. But after the harvest moon and the onshore flow, we have coastal flood issues, even minor to moderate coastal flooding as we go into the weekend. Those alerts extend all the way down to Virginia Beach. And then there's the tropics. There are several systems way out in the Atlantic, yes, but the one we're more concerned about, northern Caribbean into the southwestern Gulf of Mexico, certainly could be development into early next week. We have to watch that along the coast. That storm would be named Helene. Lindsay?
All right, Lee Goldberg for us. Thanks so much, Lee. Now to the dramatic fire on board a luxury yacht in Marina del Rey in L.A. County. Fireworks exploding as crews battled the blaze. Authorities say there may have been ammunition on board as well. The boat sank 2 hours later, and tonight an investigation is underway. Here's ABC's Trevor Ault.
Tonight, this daring rescue caught on camera on a busy highway of a Detroit suburb. Watch as a Macomb County Sheriff's vehicle approaches that silver pickup truck, the 63-year-old driver in distress experiencing a medical emergency. Deputy Nicole Myron climbing out the passenger side window, her body camera rolling. Deputy Myron speaking to ABC affiliate WXYZ.
I pretty much hung out the window like as much as I possibly could. The vehicle was pretty close, so it didn't make it too tough.
Her partner, Deputy Anthony Gross, keeping their vehicle steady in traffic.
Once she started hanging out the window, I was just trying to keep us in line with them.
Deputy Myron then climbing into the pickup and over the driver.
Where's your park? You good? You okay? I put it in the park immediately as soon as I got in the vehicle, checked on him. He was just in a daze. He wasn't sure what was really going on.
Lindsay, that driver was taken to the hospital, and tonight the deputy is being commended by the county sheriff for putting herself in harm's way to help a citizen in need. Lindsay?
Trevor Ault, what a daring rescue there. Our thanks to you. Still much more to get to coming up. There's a lot of negativity around our climate future, but one author is asking, what if we get it right? How she thinks we could solve the climate crisis. But next, how many operations rescuers have carried out after devastating floods submerge homes, leaving some residents trapped.
Baywatch is a fantasy.
Baywatch was sexy.
Baywatch was the #1 show in the world. It was hot. When you hear that theme song,
I had no idea how much fun I was going to have.
It was addicting. People were just hungry. They were eating that stuff alive.
it was a wild time, and I was a wild chick.
Everyone tuned in to watch the show because you knew you were going to see someone sexy.
I mean, everybody was pretty.
Not just white women can look hot and sexy. Anyone can do it.
Jason Momoa exploded off of Baywatch.
Carmen was a bombshell who had something to say.
Pamela Anderson was an icon.
Pamela was the sweet girl from Canada who came to get the American dream.
I'm really proud of everything I've done. Almost.
Baywatch was a whirlwind of epic highs and bitter lows.
It
It was a lot of pressure. They had to wear next to nothing. You want me to wear this? What?
He with the best abs wins, or she with the best boobs wins.
They just wanted to like put you under a microscope and see where your flaws are.
Everybody was disposable, and if you didn't fit into their brand, you were gone.
Jaywalk empowered me. Every now and then it hurt me. But so do the people and the things we love. I need to take a break, okay?
Greed and lust, fame.
It's crazy.
It changed everything.
It was about pushing the envelope.
Iconic. So hot.
Everyone likes to watch sexy things.
I'm Tom Sufi Burridge reporting from Tel Aviv. These people are calling to bring the hostages home. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Welcome back. We're tracking several headlines around the world. A storm system brought devastating floods to central Italy, submerging homes and trapping residents. The National Fire Department carried out more than 500 rescue operations, many by helicopter. The very same region was damaged just a year ago when rain and mudslides there killed 17 people. And the military patrolled the streets of Quito, Ecuador last night during government-imposed power cuts across the country. Ecuador is experiencing its worst drought in more than 60 years, and water levels at hydroelectric plants have plunged. That, coupled with a lack of maintenance on dams, contributed to the crisis. More power cuts are planned for next week nightly between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. In Thailand, police body camera footage captured the harrowing moments. A 64-year-old woman was rescued from the coils of a python. She said she was sitting down to do dishes when the massive snake wrapped itself around her body and bit her. The elderly woman said she tried to fight off the snake for more than an hour, but it kept squeezing tighter. After she shouted for help, police broke down her door and took her to the hospital. Envisioning a world outside of today's boundaries. That's the focus in her new book, What If We Get It Right? Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson writes about the possibilities and transformations that can be achieved when it comes to our climate future. Ayanna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so you talk about growing up in Brooklyn and then a family trip that you took to Florida early on. How did both ultimately inspire you to write this book?
So at 5, I learned to swim. In the Florida Keys, I saw a coral reef for the first time. And like many kids who see a coral reef and learn to swim, you fall in love with the ocean. And then, of course, when you fall in love with something, you want to protect it. So learning that the ocean was threatened because of pollution and the effects of tourism and coastal development, and then later climate change, I thought, well, let me see if I can help, especially as the daughter of a Jamaican immigrant, thinking about how important healthy coastal ecosystems are culturally and economically. This is not just a thing for tourists to enjoy. It really is the foundation of coastal economies. So that's what started it all off.
I love that you have that picture from when you were a little girl
dad,
on that trip. Very
kiddo.
nice. So what if we get it right is the theme and question. What are you referring to here?
Climate change. We have the solutions at our fingertips, right? We could get it right. I don't know if we will. That's why the title is a question mark. But we already know how to switch to clean energy. We know how to make our buildings more efficient, to green our infrastructure. We know how to farm in ways that make more sense and improve our food system. We know how to do transportation that's based on electricity and not fossil fuels, right? We know how to protect and restore ecosystems. Those are the solutions we need. It's just a matter of how quickly we're going to implement them, how quickly we can unlock the cultural changes and the political will that will let us move forward with the solutions that we have already.
You also talked to Microsoft's AI CEO, and many people talk about artificial intelligence in terms of, you know, the evil robots that are going to ultimately take over our planet and also maybe cause a reduction in jobs. But do you think that AI could possibly be positive when it comes to solving climate change?
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue is that AI is here, right? There's no chance of us sort of putting that cat back into the bag. So it's a matter of exactly how we could use it as part of climate solutions. And Mustafa Suleyman, who's interviewed in this book, you'll see we have sort of a rousing debate about what we think the role should be. We have differing opinions there. But it certainly could be used to improve energy efficiency in some ways, on the one hand. But on the other hand, AI is extremely energy intensive and water intensive itself, right? So I don't think AI is needed to address the climate crisis, but since we have it, it's certainly worth thinking through how it could best be applied.
With regard to the politics of it, you write at one point, no matter who's in office, keep pushing, pry open windows of opportunity. What ultimately gives you hope that humans will be able to kind of turn the tide on climate change?
Well, the open secret is I'm not actually an optimist. I'm a realist, I'm a scientist, right? I know, though, that there are many different possible futures. So often this conversation is presented as apocalypse being like the option, or solving climate change, and paradise being the alternative. And actually, it's anything in between. And what I care about is that it's a huge difference whether we get to 80% of the solution or 60 or 40. We're talking about hundreds of millions of lives hanging in the balance, and quality of life for all of us when we're thinking about the heat waves, the wildfires, the floods, the sea level rise, the droughts, the food insecurity, the conflicts that are accelerated by all of this. The Department of Defense calls climate change a threat multiplier, right? That's what we're talking about here. So even if we don't get everything right, we should still try to get it as right as possible.
Ayanna, we thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your insight. Want to let our viewers know, What If We Get It Right is now available wherever books are sold. And still to come, she's a bassist and singer who's worked with big names, but now she's out with her latest project. Now she's also opening doors for female bassists.
Whenever, wherever news breaks, it's so important to always remember that lives are changed.
Here in London, in Buffalo, Uvalde, Texas, Edinburgh, Scotland, from Poland once again tonight. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Ukrainian refugees here in Warsaw. Do you think you'll ever be able to go back home? We're heading to a small community outside of Mexico City. Splintered houses and splintered lives, and the magnitude of the devastation. You're streaming ABC News Live. Reporting from Rolling Fork, Mississippi, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Raleigh, North Carolina, the U.S. Capitol, Mayfield, Kentucky,
Minneapolis,
Mexico, Tongass National Forest, Alaska.
Getting you behind the stories as they happen, giving you a front row seat to our world as it plays out in real time, live.
ABC News Live Prime. We'll take you there.
Stream ABC News Live weeknights, America's most honored streaming news program, only on ABC News Live, streaming free right now wherever you stream your news. What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
An operation to capture ISIS fighters.
Is this our Combat Operations Center?
We're approaching the gate now. Militants came in from 4 or 5 different directions.
Operational nuclear reactor.
So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag, there's not a tear in it.
Not a tear in it.
How important is this label right here, Made in the USA? Look at your smile. You're proud of this.
I love this.
Great work.
Hi.
Where are you? Where are you?
Appreciate you.
Thank you, David. Good to meet you.
Ismail?
David.
David.
Yes, yes. I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
I watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
The versatile bassist, singer, and DJ from New York City, Blue de Tiger, is fully stepping into the spotlight. She's already shared the stage with huge names, playing alongside the Bleachers and Olivia Rodrigo, and has opened for Charlie Puth and Sabrina Carpenter. Now she's embarking on her journey as a solo artist with her new album, All I Ever Want Is Everything. Let's take a listen. Blue de Tiger joins us now in studio. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So this album is largely about self-discovery. What did you draw it from for inspiration?
Honestly, just life, you know, a lot of living. You know, I was touring a lot while I was making the record, and it was kind of like post-pandemic. So coming out of that and kind of transitioning into normal life again, And just growing up, you know, it took me like 3 years to make this record, so
Oh, wow.
a lot happened in that time span and just different experiences, and yeah.
Just poured it all in, and it's
Yeah.
really this eclectic mix of electro pop and alternative rock and a little bit of jazz in there as well. How are you able to make it all blend together so seamlessly?
Yeah, honestly, the bass is always the factor that, you know, stays true in everything I do. You know, I started playing when I was 7, and that's, you know, the way I hear music and the way I write music is through the bass and through that instrument. So, you know, whatever genre or whatever, like anything I'm writing about, it's always, the bass is always kind of the emotional center of every song and everything I do. So that's always the consistent thing.
Do you remember when you were 7 first picking up that bass guitar,
Yeah.
how you felt about it?
Yeah, I felt amazing. I mean, it was taller than me. It was way bigger than me. Yeah, I felt amazing. I just really connected with it ever since I started playing. Something about, I don't know, the bass is such a cool instrument because you can kind of like feel it in your soul and in your chest. And that's just what I loved about it. Just I really connected with that low frequency, I guess.
Another connection you have, the collaborations you do with your brother, drummer. Yeah. What is the best part of working with him?
It's awesome. I mean, working with families is the best, in my opinion. You know, we grew up playing together. He was the one that kind of inspired me to pick up the bass in the first place and start playing music. And, you know, touring with him is incredible. He plays in my band, and just being with someone you really trust and have a loyalty with. And, yeah, and we get along really well, so I'm very lucky.
And you have your very own signature bass guitar collaboration with Fender. Did you have a thought about even realizing I'm the first woman they've ever done a collaboration with?
Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, that's been a big goal of mine, you know, since I started playing, is to have my own signature. Yeah, I'm the first woman to have one with Fender and the youngest person ever, so it's pretty crazy. I'm just really grateful that I can help, you know, inspire and empower younger generation to pick up an instrument. That's kind of a big goal, so.
And you've recently toured. What kind of experience do you want your fans to leave having had at one of your concerts?
I mean, I want them to have the most fun ever. I want them to, yeah, be empowered to be their best self, to feel confident. I just want the full show from, you know, the second you step in to the second you leave to just be like the biggest blast of all time and really feel all the feelings.
You're known in the industry as the most sought-after bass player. Has that sunk in?
Not really, but I mean, it's incredible. I'm just loving the journey I'm on, and yeah, everything's been amazing so far. So that's very kind of you to say that.
Very excited for you and all that is in the future and in store. Thank you so much for coming by. And for our viewers, you can listen to All I Ever Want Is Everything on streaming platforms now. And that is our show for tonight. I'm Linsey Davis. ABC News Live is here for you all night with the latest news, context, and analysis. You can always find us on Hulu, Roku, Pluto TV, the ABC News app, and of course, abcnews.com, as well as Disney+. The news never stops. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Have a great night.
The question is, why was Matthew Perry doing ketamine? How did he get it? And who is to blame for his death?